Everybody loves Christmas, including me, so I figured I'd do a special holiday episode where I review dank Christian memes in honor of the holidays. Now, I don't really plan on making this a Christmas episode, but I absolutely couldn't resist showing this meme. Holidays are the best. Okay, let's take a look at some dank Christian memes. Let's get into it. Let's see if we can do a bunch of memes back to back. This is probably my favorite. It's kind of ridiculous, but something about it is funny as hell. Next, when threatened, the Pope can spray holy venom up to 25 feet. When you think about it, the Pope really does have weird outfits, right? Why does he wear that shit? I understand it's rooted in tradition or whatever, but how bizarre is this stuff? And what's with the giant hat? Okay, next meme. Jesus, I can turn water into wine. Medusa, hold my beer. Medusa 1, Jesus 0. Again, I can't put my finger on why this is so funny, it just is. Next, these letters apparently stand for Bible discussion/study meeting. This is pretty funny to me because when I was a Jehovah's Witness, we used to say we were studying with prospective Jehovah's Witnesses. And when Genetically Modified Skeptic and I were walking into the Jehovah's Witness headquarters, I told him to tell everybody around that he was studying with me. And he started referring to himself as my study buddy, which would be a quick way to blow our cover. Christians use the strangest language sometimes, and you don't realize how weird it is until you get out of it. Next meme. This isn't necessarily a Christian meme, it's a Jehovah's Witness meme. Well, I guess Jehovah's Witnesses are Christian, so it still counts. But I forgot to include it in my Jehovah's Witness meme review video, so it can fit right here. Jehovah's Witness Training Camp. The question is, do Jehovah's Witnesses have training rooms like this? And the answer is no. But they do train to go door knocking. It's been about 13 years since I was in the religion, so this information might be a little bit out of date now, but when I was in it, they had these things called the Kingdom Ministry. They were about 4 pages long, loose paper. It included basic stuff that the society wanted to communicate to the members. On the back, it would have suggestions for conversation starters and presentations for the latest editions of the magazines we were giving out. So you'd practice reading the presentations and making them seem more natural and less scripted with family members. And yes, they definitely do pretend to knock on a door and give the presentation to friends and family before they actually go knocking. Okay, next meme. Leaving room for the Holy Spirit when you dance. When in doubt, stay at least one Bible length away. I find this one hilarious for a number of reasons. First of all, they're dancing. In a lot of evangelical religions, that's forbidden. As Seth Andrews says, dancing is a vertical expression of a horizontal desire. I'm honestly not sure how they come to that conclusion, but they do. And you have to stay at least one Bible length away? That's even better. I remember meeting my girlfriend's family and talking about the fact that we need to leave room for Jesus between us while we're in their company. We couldn't hold hands or kiss or anything. Have to have a constant Jesus bubble around us at all times. Okay, next meme. When Jesus returns. Non-believers, it wasn't a myth? OMG, Jesus, you are Lord. Believers, Lord Jesus, we were waiting for you. So this is implying that non-believers are complete fools for not believing it. My problem with this is the fact that there is no good evidence to believe it. None. The whole story is ridiculous. And how do we know Jesus is coming back instead of Muhammad or something? How do we know which one is true? There's just as much evidence for other religions as there is for Christianity. In some cases, there's even more evidence. It's all piss poor, but it exists. So if Jesus came back tomorrow and I could verify that he's real and it isn't some kind of trick, I would believe it immediately. No question. Now, do I want to worship a God who's as immoral as the God of the Bible? That's another question, and I'm gonna have to think about that one. The answer is probably no. That being said, convincing me to believe would be as simple as God transmitting a message to everybody's brain on earth at the same time. We could all talk to each other and verify that we all received the message. That's not outside his power, is it? Is God powerful enough to do something like that? Why is he playing hide and seek? Why is it virtuous to believe in something on bad evidence or no evidence? I'm not connecting the dots here. This whole thing seems outrageous to me. Okay, next meme. You carry 6 chairs at once after church service. Me, an intellectual. Yeah, I had that experience too. Although as a Jehovah's Witness, we didn't really put the chairs away at the end of the meetings, but we did have gatherings like book study, where we'd have to put stuff away afterward. And the most holy and righteous people would be the ones cleaning up. There weren't really any girls my age in my congregation, so I wasn't trying to impress anybody except the higher-ups and my parents. Didn't really inspire the same motivation. Next, Super Smash Bros. Genesis. This one's pretty clever, obviously referencing Cain and Abel from the book Genesis. By the way, after Cain did that, how did he reproduce? It all came down to him, right? I mean, you had Adam and Eve, two people. Supposedly, they were gonna populate the earth. First of all, there isn't enough genetic variation there. There's something called the rule of 5. To populate Mars, you need an absolute bare minimum of 50 people. You couldn't possibly do it with fewer than that. And honestly, you might not even be able to do it with just 50. If you did have 50 people, they'd all have to be very genetically diverse. And you'd have to have breeding councils to make sure that all men reproduced with all women as many times as possible. Then the breeding council would have to oversee the next generation too. It would be a lot easier with 500 people, but there would still have to be breeding councils. Polygamy would be encouraged. Again, as many kids with as many people as possible. With 5,000 people, you could probably do it without a breeding council. Monogamy would be possible. So how in the holy heck did two people completely populate the earth with no breeding council? There isn't enough genetic diversity for it to have worked. Like, not even close. It's a ridiculous proposition. Who did Cain breed with? His sister? How did that work without serious problems? Okay, next meme. So today at church, a guy in a suit tried to drown me. And I kid you not, my family stood there taking pictures. Yeah, infant baptisms are kind of strange, right? Jehovah's Witnesses don't do infant baptisms. They want the person to be of sound mind and judgment and completely aware of the decision they're making and how it'll affect their life. So they encourage it as young as 8 years old. Yeah, 8 years old. That sounds like a good age to make a decision that's irreversible and will affect you until the end of your days. I've been saying this for years. If you aren't old enough to get a tattoo, or to get married, or to sign a legally binding contract, you shouldn't be allowed to make a decision as serious as getting baptized as a Jehovah's Witness. There are consequences that go along with signing that verbal contract. If you realize it's all horse shit, you can't reverse it without losing everything and everybody you ever knew or loved. It isn't like a precaution like it is with Methodists. Like, oh, just dunk yourself in this water in case he's real and go about your business. Doesn't matter if you don't come to church again for the rest of your life. No, this is a contract. If you break any of the rules, even the really stupid ones, you'll lose your family forever. Okay, next meme. So there I was, the only white guy in Jerusalem. Yeah, how did Jesus turn into a blue-eyed white guy? That's kind of weird, right? He was obviously Middle Eastern and Jewish. This is just strange, seriously. Would Christians love him any less knowing he wasn't blue-eyed and white? Seems kind of sacrilegious to completely change characteristics about him to make them more like you. Here's a bonus meme before we hit the last one. Boop, LOL. Yeah, I find it so fascinating that a lot of the time, Christians completely ignore the story of Doubting Thomas. I mean, think about it. This dude needed real, hard evidence of Jesus' wounds before he would believe it. And what did Jesus do? Did he tell him, I'm shunning you now because faith is a virtue and you should just believe it because I tell you to? No, he showed him the evidence. Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, and Christians more generally expect you to believe things without a shred of good evidence. And that's because there is none. If they were really following Jesus' example, they wouldn't call faith virtuous. They'd recognize that it's ridiculous to expect you to believe something with no basis for that belief. And they certainly wouldn't shun you if you don't believe it anyways. And here's our final meme. The war on Christmas. A boot sitting on Christians' heads. Turns out they're holding the boot to their own head. Nobody cares whether you say Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas. Seriously, I absolutely love Christmas, and I'm an atheist. I celebrate the heck out of it. It's the best holiday ever. Honestly, I just love it for the commercial aspect. I love giving people gifts. I love eating dinner with family. I love playing stupid Christmas games. Nothing better. Nobody's trying to take away your Christmas. That being said, I will not stand for religious stuff in my kids' school. You can have Christmas stuff in school, but if it turns religious, we're gonna have a problem. If you have them sing a Christian song or set up a nativity scene or something, I will start a phone call campaign to the Board of Education, the likes of which you've never seen. Anyways, Merry Christmas everybody, and Happy Holidays for those of you who don't celebrate Christmas. That's all I got for you. If you like what I do and you want to make sure I can continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, you can support me on Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check out my Teespring. I'm trying to make a shirt design for every cult I've covered. I haven't gotten every one, but I'm working on it. So check it out and see if your cult is up there. Second, you can support me by checking out my game shop. I sell controller, cartridge, and game box stands for every system from the original Nintendo and Sega Game Gear to the Xbox One and Nintendo Switch. So give that a look too. And And finally, if you want to support me in some way other than monetarily, you can check out my other YouTube channels. I have a retro game channel where I answer questions like, why does Shy Guy have a mask? And why are CRT TVs the best way to play retro games? I also have the podcast where I talk about stuff I don't feel I can say on a monetized channel. And finally, I have my main channel where I talk about cults. I wish I didn't have to worry about dancing around subjects carefully in the first place, but I chose to do this as a full-time job, so unfortunately, I rely on YouTube's AdSense and on the support of patrons to continue doing the work I do. Anyways, check me out in all those places if you haven't already. Thanks for listening, guys.